What is up, fanatics? I'm Brighton.
And I'm Josh.
And today we just have one big question to ask. What the f*** is up with Star Wars?
All right, we never did an official review of the Book of Boba Fett. We're busy people. But we have some theories on where Star Wars is going. He came to me the other day and said something about Grogu, and I was like, dude, I have a theory about Grogu as well. So we started talking about it. We want to share those theories. We want to talk about where we think Star Wars is heading. But before we get into that, we never did a review of Book of Boba Fett, so let's just talk about that real quick. What were your overall thoughts?
Overall, it was pretty good. Originally, I kind of was out of it. I watched like the first 15 minutes of the show, and then I didn't watch it again until episode 4. And I feel a little bit bad about that. It wasn't until episode 4 that came out that I finally went back and watched it, because just that first episode was kind of a slog for me.
I stayed up to watch the first episode. I was excited. I had mixed opinions. I never felt like the show needed to happen. The whole mystery around Boba Fett was enough for me. I feel like he was better as a man of mystery. But if they're going to do it, I wanted to see if they were doing it right. So I jumped right in. The first episode had these great little moments. But overall, it felt like it was kind of dragging. It was slow. It had bad pacing. It was weird, the way they were throwing back in memories. So, Then the second episode happened, and I was really excited about it. I was like, okay, here we go. Then the third episode was
and dropped right back
kind
down.
of trash.
Yeah.
It was the worst episode. The third episode was horrible. Fourth episode was good.
Yeah.
Then it got into Mandalorian 2.5.
Yeah.
That's legit what this season ended up being. The fourth and fifth episode was almost completely Mandalorian based. And they were great.
Yeah. And we can't be too surprised. They did let us know that this was going to be a slight spin-off from the Mandalorian story.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. At that point, they stole the show, and for rightfully so they were super good episodes.
Yeah, all fairness aside, they said that this was a spin-off of The Mandalorian. So I expected The Mandalorian to show up. It's just we're so used to the fact that shows are supposed to be this like neatly packaged thing about what we think the title is and all that. I feel like we're at a point now where we've got to get beyond that, at least with Disney-related projects. Because, I mean, look at Hawkeye. Hawkeye wasn't really about Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye. It was about Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
She was the main person. We got a bunch of shows like that now.
Definitely, like, they keep giving these deeper undertones to the shows that we're watching with this upper layer of, like, here's the title, but we're not quite following that path. Like,
we've got to get beyond the fact of thinking that these shows are just about that. Because I feel like what they're doing is these shows are the new comics. Comics aren't really thriving these days.
No.
In book form, they're not doing that great. But comic book related material is the best of the best. It's literally the only thing keeping theaters alive right now.
Yeah.
And most streaming services. Like, they are the most important things happening in media. And yet they're based on things that are dying out almost.
Yeah, because look at all of the biggest shows that we've had come out in the past. The Boys, Invincible. It kind of flopped, but Netflix tried their run with Jupiter's Descendants,
which was a good show.
Yeah.
It just happened in the middle of so many other things, and it fell a little short. But
HBO's Watchmen.
Yeah.
Peacemaker that's just come out. Like, there's so much that now you pretty much turn on any major network and they have something going on related to a comic-based idea.
Yeah, it's the top of the mountain. But like I say, it's based on a dying art form that I hope doesn't die out. Like, we still support comics, but the point is they are realizing that comics lasted for so long and keeps you engaged in a whole universe so well that they're replicating that now in other media forms. And that's what we're getting. So when we get these shows, we do have to realize that they are always leading to what's next.
Yes.
It's not about what is in the show. It's about what it makes you want to stay tuned for. And I think that gets into what we wanted to talk about with Star Wars here, because I feel like not only the Book of Boba Fett, but the Mandalorian in general, what's happening on Disney Plus is about the future.
Yeah, for sure.
I've mentioned this to you before, but I feel like Favreau and Filoni have such a good idea for what fans, Star Wars fans, want, that I'm not saying that they hate the sequels. We don't have any quotes of them out there saying, you know, I hate Rian Johnson or anything like that. It's not that they're shitting on the last movies that's coming out, but they are very purposely paying tribute to the original trilogy. The prequels, and the animated series, which was Filoni's
like
baby.
child.
Yeah. So, before we get on to our theories, how would you have rated Book of Boba Fett?
Honestly, with everything encompassing, probably based on our scale, maybe a 7.5 and 8. Because it was a good, at its heart, it was a good show.
Yeah. Episodes 5 and 6 were like a 9.5 level show. Episode 3 was like a 5 at best.
Yeah.
And then you've got everything in between. The last episode was more like a child's dream come true. It wasn't very adult. Like, it sounded like a child came up with a theory, and then they were like, well, let's make it happen so that adults can enjoy it.
And it nailed that on the head.
Yeah. It wasn't the best episode, but it was really good.
Yeah.
But the best episodes were about Grogu.
Yeah.
And the Mandalorian. So, that's what led us to wanting to do this video. What are some thoughts you have about where this is going? Because I know I have some.
All right, so I've been thinking a lot about the Darksaber. It's been prevalent throughout the Mandalorian. We now see Mando being the one who wields it after winning against Moff Gideon. And we've gotten some more and more history to the Darksaber as far as its original creator, Tare, who was a Mandalorian, who was then taken into the Jedi Order and became a Jedi Knight, and then eventually became the Lord of the Mandalorians. And I feel like it's a little bit of a reflection here as far as the next wielder of the Darksaber. And the show has been hammering this point of Mando being the one who wields the Darksaber, and having won it through combat.
Yeah.
And even using it against, in episode 4, when he uses the Darksaber, and he's learning how to use it properly and how to wield it properly.
Episode 5, I believe.
Is it episode 5?
I think so. But go on.
And so, as they're doing it, like as he's learning, it still fights him. And we see him fight with it all the way through.
Heavy.
It's heavy, it's just unwieldy. And it made me think that maybe Mando is not the person that's supposed to wield the Darksaber.
It's got a weird history.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who the rightful heir is if you look at it, because it's been so weird. Like, if you follow one path, it should be Anakin. If you follow another path, it was Ahsoka. But both of those got, like, kind of undone when the whole recent sequels came out that that Palpatine was still alive. Because the whole history got connected with Palpatine there for a while. And that he was supposed to be the true wielder of it, even though that wasn't in the movies.
Yeah.
With Clone Wars, we know the animated series is actually, something we need to be following now. Like, that is part of the canon.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot about it. It's a confusing history. So, you think that the heir
is Grogu. I think, because I don't think the way the Darksaber works is that it belongs to a rightful heir lineage, because it's popped back and forth between Tare's original lineage multiple times, where it's gone, where it was eventually found by his like great-great-grandson, who then helped lead more of a rebellious, cultish version of the Mandalorians. Much like sort of like how the Way is. Because the Way is more of a original, like very original religious way of worshiping, of being a Mandalorian, versus how we see the Mandalorians now, at least the majority of them that have spread out after the collapse of Mandalore, where it's okay to take your helmet off, it's okay to do these interactions and stuff like that. But all that being said, I don't think it's a direct lineage as far as ancestral, but I do think it has something to do with the ability of the wielder. And I think this whole point of the show is it's pointing us in the direction of Grogu being the true heir, true wielder of the Darksaber. It's been a tough journey to get there, but it's going from a Force-sensitive Mandalorian to another Force-sensitive Mandalorian. And I think that's how they're going to basically make it a point of Mando is the guardian of Grogu. All this is meant to be by the Force, or however you want to put it. And Grogu becoming a foundling, becoming a Mandalorian, eventually wielding the Darksaber, and being the true rightful heir to lead the Mandalorians into the next several generations of Mandalore and its culture.
Yeah, so when you first brought up the idea that Grogu should be the true wielder of the Darksaber, I had not thought about it like that. But I'd already had my own theory about Grogu with the Mandalore lore. So it was interesting to me when you brought it up, because the way I was thinking about it, and by the way, before I get into my theory, I do agree with the fact that, like, they try to make a point of it in the Mandalorian seasons. When the Darksaber first showed up, it was trying to be made out like you had to win it in combat. But that's not the whole history of that Darksaber. That's how one section of the Mandalorians went on to think that it had to be passed on. They're the more kind of war-happy. Yeah,
which would have been the one who set that in stone was his like great-great-great-grandson.
Right.
That was the one who was more of a militarist, not like a lot of the Mandalorians at the time, which were pacifists.
Yeah, so we keep hearing all of these, like, it has to be this way, it has to be that. This is the way. Like, the Mandalorians are very set in their ways, but they're not, because they're so fractured. Mm-hmm. So it's all going to come back down to something else. And I like the theory that it should be Grogu's, because I have a theory that The Mandalorian, as a show in general, isn't just about the Mandalorian. So Mando is obviously the Mandalorian. That's who we're talking about. It's named after him. I get that. But I feel like everything that Jon Favreau and Filoni are doing is trying to build towards where Star Wars should go in the future. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Grogu is an important part of that. And we all knew that he wasn't going to choose the lightsaber. We knew that he was going to choose to be with Mando.
Yeah.
And I think that an important part of this comes down to the fact that he is learning under someone who he relates to. The Mandalorian is someone who is only on the path that he's on because as a young child, war ripped away everything that he knew. Mm-hmm. Grogu is basically a toddler, a 50-year-old toddler dealing with PTSD.
Yeah.
He had the exact same thing happen to him. He doesn't have much memory of his past, but he can read into people's minds and kind of get a feel from them because he's so powerful in the Force. I feel like he connects to Mando on such a level because he relates to Mando. He feels like him and Mando are one and the same. His past has put him forward on a journey where he is strong with the Force, and I feel like he will continue to get stronger with the Force. But he is on the path of becoming the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I feel like when the show is said and done, you could look back at it and say, yeah, it's about the Mandalorian, Mando, but it's really about becoming the Mandalorian. I feel like Grogu is becoming the Mandalorian. It's his tale. It's one of those things where you can look back at the title and see it kind of symbolizes both of them.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of him becoming the wielder of the Darksaber because as strong as he is with the Force, we've already seen that when he uses it naturally, he's not an evil creature, but he's using the dark side.
Yeah.
We've already seen him do the choke. Every single time he tries to help Mando, he's not using the light side of the Force. He's using the dark side.
Everything but Force lightning.
And the Clone Wars, better than anything in live action has ever taught us, I feel like. If you watch the Clone Wars, it gives you a true history of the light, the dark, and the balance. And I feel like Grogu is going to find the balance and be that in between. Like, he's got some neat history. Everybody wants to say the Chosen One was Anakin. And George Lucas himself said Anakin was the Chosen One. But you know who was born in the exact same year as Anakin? Grogu. Grogu, we don't know who his father is. He was born naturally strong in the Force. Like, there's all these parallels. There could be a fact of where Anakin was the Chosen One that would bring the balance. What if Anakin saved Grogu during the Order 66, the whole thing like that?
We never get clarification of how he...
Yeah.
Because, like, the most we see at the end of the episode, where at the end of the little montage that they give us of what's happening during Order 66 is the housing closes and that's it. You hear some yelling. You don't know how he gets out. You don't know why, because like he ends up in basically a storage facility off world somewhere. So we don't know.
Yeah,
it had to be some. It could have been Ahsoka.
I think R2-D2 snuck him out, and that would be a good reason to think that maybe Anakin is part of who snuck him out. Anakin knew by episode 3, he knew that he was the Chosen One. He knew that. The character knew that. Hayden Christensen literally said that the character knows that at that point. In episode 3, Anakin knows that he's the Chosen One. So even with all the bad stuff he did during that, there is still the thought that if he was the Chosen One and he was going to fail and eventually die, what if the Chosen One was actually a dual birth type of thing and Grogu is also part of it? Anakin is the one that sets it up and Grogu is the one that continues that balance. And I feel like that's an interesting way to look at it because somebody else could have saved Grogu. It doesn't matter. Ahsoka's friend who set her up for terrorism but ended up admitting the truth and all that, she'd be a perfect candidate for somebody to save her. But the story would still kind of follow the same. Grogu seems to have a balance in the Force. He is using what's easy, convenient. The dark side is what's easy and convenient. So he's using that because he doesn't remember any of his first 50 years of teaching. And it would have been great for somebody like Luke to teach him more to set that up. But I feel like what we're seeing is Grogu is set up so that they could make movies that are hundreds of years from now. And he could be somebody that is the balance or could lean one way or the other. He could end up being a villain. We don't know. But when it comes to the whole light, dark, and balance, there's an interesting episode in Clone Wars where Ahsoka and Anakin and Obi-Wan, they all meet the spirit avatars of light, dark, and balance. It was an episode where it's like the brother, sister, and father. The brother was the dark side, the sister was the light side, and the father was the balance. And Ahsoka actually dies during that. And the sister uses her Force energy to bring Ahsoka back. And from that point forward, Ahsoka goes on and is being followed by Mirai, which is the spirit animal of the light side. And you even see that in The Mandalorian. When Ahsoka shows up, she's being followed by an owl. So that wasn't like a throw-off. They're actually like following through with that. Ahsoka is the avatar for the light side. The fact that she never went back to the Jedi fully I don't think matters. I think it's showing an evolution of what Star Wars is doing. And that's why I think it's important to talk about what the fuck are Star Wars, what the fuck is going on here, because things are changing. They're not going to keep going this route. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have a plan. And I'm thinking that Grogu is going to be out there like the balance. Ahsoka is going to go forward as kind of a new symbol, a non-Jedi new symbol for the light side. Because the Jedi history is muddy.
And with the Kenobi show on the horizon, we may now get to see more of Anakin being the representation of the dark.
Yep. And
now you have that and it makes sense because, like we said, Clone Wars is Filoni's child. So that episode probably hits home with him, and he probably was like, I want to make sure that when we do this live action, I want to show it. So the Ahsoka show will show her going forward as the light. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show will be showing Anakin going forward as the dark, and Grogu going forward as the balance. And I think it's something that a lot of fans should be excited to see.
Yeah, we're building up to something big because they've got Kevin Feige himself brought over into the Star Wars universe to produce an upcoming untitled project. I feel like that untitled project is a culmination of what's happening at Disney Plus. I think all the Disney Plus entities are leading up to a big theatrical show, that Kevin Feige is going to produce. And I feel like it's going to be a Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni influenced storyline.
Yeah.
And I think it's trying to kind of flush out the bad memories that the sequels have brought us.
Probably. And not everything about the sequels are bad, but
no, they had good moments.
It's definitely like when you take the trilogies and put them in an order, you're obviously having original, prequel, and which it says a lot if the prequel outdoes the sequels. The
Everybody
sequels
hated them for so long.
Prequels were not like I'm a huge fan. I can barely make it through episode 1.
Some of the worst pacing we've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
And it's sad that those three always
also some of the best
outweigh
fights
the sequel.
and story arcs. So like,
yeah,
the first episode had these great things. They
like
just
that Darth
really
Maul fight.
Oh, it was
so
epic.
good,
so epic. Episode 1 wasn't completely trash. It was just elongated to kind of. It shouldn't have been a very long.
To be completely honest, being it was written before the original trilogy, like setting world building and setting up worlds is always something like that, but it still could have been executed a lot better.
Yeah.
But we're getting really way off pace with all of this.
The point is, I think that Star Wars has never been lower than where it is now with how some of these movies have made fans feel like there's nothing to be hopeful for. And I feel like the Disney Plus shows have only halfway got people excited. However, I do feel a lot of hope, a new hope, where these Disney Plus shows are leading to something where they're going to tie in the lore that everybody loves from Star Wars, and it's going to build to this new epic type of thing. I do have a lot of hope for Star Wars going forward, and it's because of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. And maybe
Kevin Feige, yeah.
But I feel like we've got some good things coming.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of good things to look forward to, and it's nice because as far as Star Wars fans go, it hasn't really been a good past. Like, to be a Marvel fan, it's been phenomenal, but in the last decade of Marvel films, if you look at the last decade of Star Wars, it's been rough.
It has.
Like, we've had Rogue One and Solo as well.
They were good.
And they were good.
There's been plenty of good. There just hasn't been great. That leads you to think that, oh man, it's all opening up again. It's just been individual good things.
There's no reason why a trilogy from the 70s should be better than anything we're putting out now, except through nostalgia. And that's the thing. It's not nostalgia that holds them up. It's story. It's everything about the original trilogy. It's nice to see with Favreau and Filoni being behind these projects and kind of building these characters up and building up this path forward for Star Wars fans.
Yeah. Personally, like I say, I have felt like we've been at a low point for a long time, but I'm excited. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Let us know in the comments what you think is going on with Star Wars, because it's all over the place right now. So literally any idea is a good one. It might not be, but hey, we'll go with it. So, anything else you want to say?
Jar Jar Binks was a Sith Lord.
Yes, he was.
All right. Later,
Later
fanatics.
fanatics.